Let's discuss how to convert metric units. And the first thing we have to look at is the language on how the words for units are formed. So first, let's look at the word meter. The meter is actually the benchmark. And we know that a benchmark is the value in which other units are compared to. So all these other units are being compared to 1 meter. That's why in each of these words, the word meter appears. So let's start from the bottom and move our way up. Now, in French, mille, okay, for millimeter, means 1,000. And that means that there are 1,000 millimeters in a meter. Or we can say that a millimeter is 1/1000th of a meter. Let's look at centimeters. Cent means 100. So that means that there are 100 centimeters in a meter. Or we could say that the value of a centimeter is 1/100th of a meter. Okay, let's keep moving up. Deci. Okay, so deci means 10. So that we know that 10 decimeters is equal to 1 meter. Or that decimeter is 1/10th of a meter. Again, meters are benchmarks, so we don't have much to discuss there. But let's move on to kilometer. Now, the kilometer is actually the only value that we're looking at that is a whole number and is greater than a meter. And kilo means 1,000, and we know that 1,000 meters is equal to a kilometer. One easy way to convert metric units is actually to use a ruler. So here's a ruler on our display, and we can look at this ruler because it denotes centimeters. So the larger numbers are centimeters. So here's 3 centimeters, here's 4 centimeters, here's 5 centimeters, here's 6 centimeters, here's 7 centimeters, and here's 8 centimeters. The little lines in between are the millimeters. So we know that this line here, where I put the arrow, is 1 centimeter. We also know that this large line here is 2 centimeters. And I'm sure you understand by now that this line here, it would be 3 centimeters, and here would be 4 centimeters. Let's go back to the numbers that we were just comparing. So we said that this line here is 1 centimeter. However, if we look at the smaller lines, we can count off millimeters. So not only is this line 1 centimeter, but it is also 10 millimeters. Not only is this line here 2 centimeters, but it is also 20 millimeters. So you can use a ruler to convert. You can take a meter stick and you can see how many centimeters are in a meter or how many millimeters are in a meter. But this way of converting is visual and you can see it, but it's not very practical. For example, you can't find a ruler that's a kilometer long. Let's try to convert metric units in a more efficient way. The first thing you should notice is that I put a key here that'll help us with our conversion. And it's the same key that appeared on the first slide. So it tells us, for example, that 10 millimeters is equal to 1 centimeter, and so on. Now, if we look at the question, it says that 3 kilometers is the same as how many meters? Right away, you have to notice is that we're using a larger unit, and we're trying to convert it to a smaller unit. So we're going larger to smaller. When we're going larger to smaller, we are actually multiplying. If I circle 1 kilometer, and I think that I have to go to meters, I can see that I crossed 3 zeros. So a quick and easy way to convert is to say that I can put the 3 and add those 3 zeros that I crossed over to get to meters. Now, if we think what's happening mathematically, I am taking the 3 and I'm multiplying by the 1,000 to get to 3,000. So 3 kilometers is the same as 3,000 meters. We can look at the same number and think or solve what happens when we're trying to jump over more than 1 unit. So in this example, we're going from a kilometer and jumping over to decimeters. But we are still going from a larger unit to a smaller unit. In fact, we're going to an even smaller unit than the previous example, but we still have to multiply. Let's actually convert our 3 kilometers to decimeters. So if we look at our key, we should notice that we are passing over 4 zeros until we arrive at 1 decimeter. So we can take our value of 3 and we can add our 4 zeros. Don't forget the unit. And just like that, we know that 30,000 decimeters is equal to, or the same as, 1 kilometer. Now, if we think what's happening mathematically, we could take the 3 and we can multiply it by the amount of zeros that we passed over, or 10,000, and we still get the answer of 30,000 decimeters. Let's look at a different type of question. So in this question, we have 482 centimeters is the same as how many meters? And the first thing we have to think is that we're going from a smaller unit to a larger unit, which makes this different than the previous examples. Now, because we're going from a smaller unit to a larger unit, we have to divide. So let's look at our answer key again. To get from centimeters to meters, we have to consider how many zeros we jumped over. So there's 1 zero here, and there's 1 zero here. So altogether, we jumped over 2 zeros to get from centimeters to meters. But this time we're dividing, and we have to consider that our original number was 482, and we know that it could be 482 decimal zero, because any whole number you have could have decimal zero to the end of it. And if we can move the decimal point over 2 places, and then we would discover that 482 centimeters is equal to 4.82 meters. Or if we think about what's happening mathematically, we are taking 482 and dividing it by 100. And the answer would still be 4.82. Let's do another example. So, in this question, it asks that 24 meters is the same as how many kilometers? Now, once again, the first step is we have to notice that we're going from a smaller unit to a larger unit. And once again, that means that we have to divide. Once again, we have to look at our key, and we are going from kilometers to meters. Now, when we jump from kilometers to meters, we are crossing over 3 zeros. But this time we have to divide. So we can write the number 24, and we know that after every whole number, there is a decimal zero. Now, again, we have to consider that we are jumping over 3 zeros to get to 1 meter. So I could take my decimal point, and I can make it jump to divide, and the decimal is moving 3 to the left, so that the answer would be 0.024 kilometers. So that 24 meters is the same as 0.024 kilometers. And if we think what's happening mathematically, we're taking the 24 and we're dividing it by 1,000. And you would still get the answer of 0.024. Let's review what we learned. First, we discussed how units of measure are named according to their values. So, for example, the word cent appears in centimeters, describing its relation to a meter. Secondly, we learned that to convert a larger unit to a smaller unit, we need to multiply. For example, 2 meters is equal to 20 decimeters. Lastly, we learned that to convert a smaller unit to a larger unit, we have to divide. For example, 35 millimeters is the same as 0.35 decimeters. Thank you for listening.